In this video, we'll prepare a full Week 7 cash lineup on the main slate on DraftKings and our favorite GPP stack coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lay.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants. Eric, I'm ready. Let's get right to it. Let's go in the studio. Look on this list, who's scoring the most fantasy points per game? And it's Austin Ekeler, and he's got a juicy matchup. They didn't price him even higher than, well, they did price him up, but he could have been priced even higher if you saw what he did this on Monday night against a pretty stingy Denver defense. You can see that Justin Herbert goes to Austin Ekeler the whole time. Look at this, 16 targets on Monday night. He got most of his yards or most of his fantasy points in the air, but he's consistently been a big target in the air, and he's consistently performing week in and week out. Look what he's done all season long. And this perhaps is his best week in terms of who he draws against. And so to me, it's a no-brainer. He's not that much more expensive or even cheaper than some of the other high-end options. And I think he's kind of guaranteed to be, if not the highest performer, one of. So really high floor and definitely a high ceiling. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned the great game environment that we have here. Being at home against the Seattle Seahawks, they have an absurd implied total of 29 and 6.5 point favorites. And that Seattle defense, they're 31 out of 32 against the rush. And they're not that great against the pass, and you can expect Ekeler to do both. So, yes, I like it. I want to ask you a question and see if you honestly agree with me. I think if Keenan Allen may play in this game, and I actually think that will help Austin Ekeler, because I think that can extend drives and take a little of the attention away from him by the defense.
Yeah, okay, maybe his 16 targets might go down to 9 or 10, but I think that's still pretty dang good, and especially in DraftKings. But let's talk about my next guy on the list. So I really like to go after running backs coming out of a bye week, especially if they've been impactful in their wins. And that's exactly the case with Josh Jacobs. The Raiders coming off a bye week, realizing the importance of including Jacobs in the passing game, which they didn't do a very good job of in the past. And look what he's doing on the ground right now. I mean, he is, I think, a huge bargain this week at only, $6,500. And look at the matchup that he draws this week. He's got Houston, who's been 30th against the rush. I think he's overall 31st against running backs. This to me is an easy decision. Look at the fantasy points per game he's been producing at $6,500. I think this is our first bargain that I'm providing to us.
Yeah, exactly what the last thing you said was what I was going to say. 6,500 is too cheap. It's too cheap for a home favorite running back. It's too cheap for a 26 implied total. It's too cheap for a guy who's gotten 33 and 26 touches in the last 2 weeks, and he's too cheap for a defense like Houston he's going against. So yes, agreed. So I am going to try to save us a little money at only $4,400. Let's talk about Zay Jones, who is at home against the New York Giants. But as of late, he has definitely been featured in this offense. Last week, he led the team in receptions and yards for passing. And that was in a case where Lawrence only threw for 165 yards. But given his price, Michael, I like Zay Jones here.
Yeah, you found us a bargain. I know the Giants defense has been a little bit stingy against the pass. They've looked really good, but Zay Jones right now looks like the number one target. Marvin Jones, I think, is probably going to be out again. And he does have some upside, and I think the floor is good. So at that 4,400 price tag, sorry, I put you in that hole. And guess what that allows me to do at the wide receiver position? And this was obviously planned. I gave Eric the bargain guys, but that allows us to go with a guy who's going up against one of the worst defenses in the league. He's been really key for Cooper Rush. It's CeeDee Lamb at $6,800. Clearly the most impressive weapon that they have from the wide receiver position. He was targeted 10 times, a couple of really bad misses that probably could have really upped his fantasy points last game. But he's averaging 16, 17 fantasy points a game, or I guess it's 14.6 here on DraftKings. His price tag is a little bit towards the middle or bottom end of his range. I really like the upside against this Detroit defense.
Everything you said, Michael, but the fact that we're filming here on Tuesday night and all indications are Dak Prescott will play. And that is a huge bump for CeeDee Lamb. And he's at home against there's no better team to face in the NFL this year than the Detroit Lions. On an average game basis, the Lions has given up more points than any other. But Detroit's coming off a bye. Why do I make that? Why is that relevant? It's because I think on the offensive side, they're going to get healthier. I think DeAndre Swift will likely play. And I think Amon-Ra St. Brown will be completely healthy, hopefully, after this bye. So I think Detroit is going to put some points on the board, unlike what they did a couple weeks ago against New England, and will force Dallas to still put the metal to the pedal. Is that right? Anyway,
pedal to the metal.
Regardless, I like Lamb here, especially if Prescott plays.
So you got to save us a few more bucks here, Eric, but not as much as you did on Zay Jones. Who do you like for the next spot?
Well, I like personally, and I like given his price, my Seattle Seahawk, Tyler Lockett. Let me just start with the fact that can I even get them on the same screen? Barely. I'm not sure why DraftKings make Lockett so much more inexpensive compared to DK Metcalf. $800 less, but I'll just accept it and get Tyler Lockett in our lineup. Here's the deal. As a Seahawks fan, I can explain to you the psyche of Coach Carroll. He wants to run the ball, right? And he wants to control the clock. The problem is, and that's what he did last week against Arizona, and therefore Geno Smith and company and the whole passing offense was very poor. The question is, do you think that Seattle is strong enough, especially like we said with Keenan Allen probably playing, to go up on the Chargers in LA? I don't think so. I think that the Seahawks are going to be playing from behind. And when they played from behind against New Orleans and when they're in that shootout against Detroit, good things happen in the passing game. So I like Lockett here for only $5,800.
Yeah, no, I really like him a lot. He only had the one down week, which was this last week. And again, it was because of the circumstances. So you hit it well.
I think we can spend up at quarterback. And that means Lamar Jackson. There's two reasons why I like Lamar Jackson, main reasons why I like him this week. One is the game environment. A home favorite, 6.5 points, good implied total of 26.5 against a suspect Cleveland defense, both against the run and the pass. But I think he's going to get some more. The second reason is he's going to get some more toys to play with. I think there's a good chance that Bateman will be back, and he really missed him. And guess what, Michael? The Baltimore Ravens are going to supplement his Social Security. I'm talking about Deshaun Jackson, and his 36-year-old self has been signed to the practice squad and will be on the roster for this game. I think that he provides a deep threat, one that Lamar Jackson has really missed ever since Hollywood Brown left town. And just the threat of him can really open things up for Jackson.
Yeah, this Baltimore team has really had a tough road in terms of defensive they've gone up against this whole season, going, from Miami to New England, to Buffalo, to the Giants this last week, who've been one of the tougher defenses. Well, they finally get a break from that. And the Baltimore Ravens got to win this game. It's really important to them. And Lamar Jackson's the key to that. There's a reason why, a lot of people are talking about him as by far the most sought after fantasy play this week. Look at the upside he has when he performs well. I think you're going to see that again this week. And that could really make your week in a 50-50 situation.
Mahomes is playing a much tougher defense than Lamar Jackson is. And I just don't think anyone else. Herbert, I don't think is still fully recovered from his rib injury. And I just don't think anyone else has near the firepower. So we decided to pay up there.
Yep. I think you said it right.
All right. So you want to hit us what we're going to do? Go ahead. We're actually decided to double our pleasure at tight end. Why don't you start with the better tight end, the guy that you're going to talk about?
All right, that sounds good. So yeah, take us over to tight end. We can't afford Kelsey or Andrews. Would love to do that. Big drop off after the two of them, both in price and in terms of and production. And so we want to go down to a guy who, when he has been on, has produced higher fantasy points because of his usage. Is David Njoku of Cleveland going up against a Baltimore defense that it has not been that strong against the pass, and he's been a key target for Jacoby Brissett. And so I think we like the floor here. Look what he's done week in and week out, except for that first week. And obviously even has a little bit of upside when he gets into the end zone. Eric?
Yeah, and he's got a good matchup. I think that this game has shootout potential. Baltimore's pass defense has not been good. Njoku has established himself. There's not that many tight ends that have done this as the second target, only behind Amari Cooper. And so I love his consistency, and therefore I love his floor for cash.
Yeah, and just a quick note there, that the Baltimore has been actually, interestingly enough, tough on the run, and so the way to get to them is in the passing game.
Shall we talk about the flex last?
Yeah, let's do that, because we obviously want to pay down on defense. The options aren't going to be that high in flex in any event. And so we don't necessarily want to just pick a defense that's not going to do anything. We want to get somebody who we think can do something, right?
I feel like that's a shot at the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, you got a few down there at the bottom with the Panthers and the Texans and the Lions and the Falcons. And yeah, okay, the Browns are a little bit better, but they haven't been great. And Baltimore's been tough to go up against. The Redskins have looked atrocious the last couple of weeks. And so the Jets, the 4-2 Jets, is that right? The 4-2 Jets who just mopped up the Packers. And why? Because of their defense. Their defense has been really impressive. This Sauce Samuels kid is really, really impressive. They're tough to throw against. They've been a little bit stout against the run, and they do perform from a fantasy perspective, especially against the last three teams they've played.
Yeah, Michael, you know what? I am going to praise the Jets defense in this pick without talking about the Jets defense. I'm going to talk about the team that they face, which is the Denver Broncos. Oh my gosh, what a huge disappointment the Denver Broncos offense is. Do you realize that they have only averaged 15 points a game so far this year? That is the lowest output of any offense in the NFL. That's unbelievable. That's worse than Houston. That's worse than the Chicago Bears. No one has scored less than them. Wilson looks confused out there. He's taken a number of sacks. He's made some bad decisions. So, yeah, I love this pick at only 2,600. We're going to have two options for you guys. One option is to use all our salary and pick up Evan Ingram. Okay, so Evan Ingram is the tight end of the Jacksonville Jaguars. They host the New York Giants. And if that doesn't ring any bells, for years, Evan Ingram started his career with these same New York Giants. And there has been a lot of trash talking on Twitter that he has done to the fans. He is really motivated to come up big this week. And if he can just do anything like he's done the last 2 weeks, where he's been heavily involved in the offense, that he should definitely pay off on this paltry $3,300 salary. You can go to that same New York Jet game, and you can pick Greg Dulcich at only 2,500. He's the minimum. He has no business whatsoever being the league minimum on DraftKings. The only reason he's the league minimum is he got hurt in his hamstring in the preseason, didn't play all the first 5 weeks of the season. He played last week. And if he did not play on Monday night, he would definitely have been $1,000 more. But because he played on Monday night, DraftKings set his salary before that game and did not include the fact that he caught 2 passes for 44 yards, including a pretty spectacular touchdown. But more than that, I like the fact that in his very first game back, he played on 71% of the snaps, folks. And I think it will only grow.
Yeah, and I watched this kid when he was at UCLA. He's a rookie this year. He's, maybe doesn't look on it on paper, but he's actually, I think, one of the fastest tight ends in the league. He was, all conference selection of the Pac-12, including first team honors in 2021. He's the real deal. I think he's going to be widely used. They need the extra target, and as you know, Eric, Russell Wilson likes to get his tight ends involved. So I like this. He's not going to stay at $2,500 long. Get him while you can.
All right. So what that will do for your lineup is you have $900 to play with. Okay, Michael. So if you're starting a GPP lineup, we always want a high ceiling. So we start with the stack. What stack do you like the most for week 7?
Well, again, we always like to target games with a high upside in terms of what we think the score is going to come out at. I think that the 2 games to look at, you've talked about them a little bit, are the Detroit-Dallas game. I think Detroit coming off the bye is going to perform again on the offensive side, which means Dallas is going to have to run it back. Or this Baltimore-Cleveland game, where both defenses haven't been great, but the offenses have been performing. So attempting to go with Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb, with both of them being priced a little bit lower, and then running it back with Amon-Ra St. Brown with the upside there. But it's only $900 more to go with Lamar Jackson to Mark Andrews, who, clearly his number one target. And we've already talked about why Lamar Jackson has so much upside, and running it back with who we've mentioned is Cleveland's number one target, Amari Cooper.
As always, everyone, if you haven't yet hit that red subscriber button, we'll also be doing a FanDuel show for week 7. When that's ready, that'll be on the screen. Until next time, take care, everybody.
And be safe.